Welcome back, listeners, to Empires of India, from Mughals to the British Raj. In our previous chapter, we explored the grandeur of the Mughal cultural renaissance, the art, the poetry, the cuisine, and the beautiful fusion of Indian and Persian traditions.
Those were the golden days of the empire. But as we all know, no empire lasts forever. And today we dive into a much darker, more tumultuous phase of Mughal history, the decline of the Mughal Empire.
That's right. We'll talk about the reign of Aurangzeb, often seen as a controversial figure, the rise of regional powers, and the factors that eventually loosened the Mughals' iron grip on India.
So sit tight, because this chapter is going to be a roller coaster of ambition, conflict, and a struggle for power.
So let's start with Aurangzeb. His reign, which lasted almost 50 years, is often considered the beginning of the Mughal decline. What was so different about his rule?
Aurangzeb, unlike his predecessors, was deeply conservative and a strict adherent of Islamic orthodoxy. While earlier emperors like Akbar embraced inclusivity and syncretism, Aurangzeb took a more rigid approach.
Yes. He reintroduced the jizya tax on non-Muslims and imposed certain restrictions on cultural practices, didn't he?
Exactly. His policies alienated many of his Hindu subjects, especially the Rajputs and the Marathas, who had been key allies during Akbar's and Jahangir's reigns.
Oh, so instead of building alliances, he ended up creating enemies. That sounds problematic, to say the least.
It was. And to make matters worse, he spent a significant portion of his reign in the Deccan, trying to suppress the rising power of the Marathas under Shivaji.
Shivaji. Now, there's a leader who gave Aurangzeb a real run for his money. His guerrilla warfare tactics were revolutionary.
Absolutely. Shivaji's resilience and the strategic depth of the Maratha forces kept Aurangzeb bogged down in costly campaigns, draining the empire's resources.
But Aurangzeb's policies weren't the only problem. The Mughal administrative system, which had been the backbone of the empire, was starting to crumble.
How so?
For starters, the Mansabdari system, which assigned land revenue to military officers and nobles, became increasingly corrupt. Over time, Mansabdars started exploiting peasants and hoarding wealth.
Oh no, that must have created a lot of unrest among the common people.
It did. Add to that the fact that Aurangzeb's focus on military expansion left little room for administrative reforms. The empire was overextended, with resources stretched thin across vast territories.
So instead of a strong, centralized empire, you had a patchwork of regions with weak oversight?
Exactly. And when regional powers like the Marathas, Sikhs, and Jats began asserting their independence, the Mughal hold over India started slipping.
Let's talk about those regional powers. The Marathas we've already mentioned, but what about the Sikhs?
The Sikhs. Their rise began during the late 17th century under Guru Gobind Singh, who militarized the Sikh community to resist Mughal oppression.
And wasn't Banda Singh Bahadur one of the first Sikh leaders to challenge the Mughal authority directly?
That's right. He led a series of uprisings in Punjab, shaking the Mughal administration in the region. Around the same time, the Jats in the northwest and the Ahoms in Assam were also resisting Mughal authority.
It's like the empire was being pulled apart from every direction. Each region wanted its own autonomy.
Exactly. And this decentralization weakened the Mughal Empire's ability to respond to external threats, like the invasions of the Persian ruler Nadir Shah.
Nadir Shah. He's the one who looted Delhi and took the peacock throne, isn't he?
Yes. In 1739, Nadir Shah's invasion was a turning point. It exposed the vulnerability of the Mughal Empire to external attacks.
And didn't he plunder unimaginable wealth? I heard he carried away so much gold and silver that it took thousands of camels to transport it.
That's true. The Mughal treasury, once overflowing, was left in tatters. This economic blow, combined with the already deteriorating administrative system, accelerated the decline.
It's heartbreaking to think how an empire so grand could fall so far, so quickly.
Indeed, and the British East India Company, which was initially a trading entity, began exploiting this instability to establish its foothold in India.
So, by the time Aurangzeb passed away in 1707, the Mughal Empire was already in trouble.
Yes, and his successors, known as the later Mughals, lacked the vision and strength to hold the empire together. They were mere puppets in the hands of powerful nobles and regional leaders.
It's almost poetic. The very alliances and systems that made the Mughal Empire so strong in its prime became its undoing.
Exactly. The empire's decline was a combination of internal decay, external pressures, and the inability to adapt to changing times.
And that brings us to the end of this chapter. The decline of the Mughals is a story of missed opportunities, flawed policies, and the relentless march of history.
It's a poignant reminder that even the mightiest empires can crumble if they fail to evolve.
In our next chapter, we'll look at the rise of the British East India Company and how they went from merchants to rulers in a fragmented India.
So we'll be back soon with more exciting discussions. So stay tuned with Westferry Times for our next episode.
And if you found today's podcast insightful, don't forget to share it with your friends and family. Let's keep the conversation going and spread the knowledge.
And, as always, thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring history with us.